All right, welcome to another video from Ranting and Raving. This is more Saints content, although this one's going to be a little bit more NFL in general, not just Saints specific. So today I'm going to rank all of the quarterbacks in the league as far as their tier, and I'm going to tell you where Derek Carr falls within that, according to me. Get all the YouTube stuff out of the way first. Always helps the channel if you guys like it. Even if you just like a video, it helps more people see it. Comment if you agree with the tiers, disagree with the tiers, think I'm an idiot, whatever. Subscribe if you enjoy the content. And if you don't enjoy the content, you should still subscribe and click on the notify button so that when I post stuff, you can send it to people you don't like so they have to watch it. Great way to, share the pain. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and bring up our tier list here. Super snazzy. And the first tier is our bottom tier. So each of these tiers, these are my tiers. Again, these are my rankings based on how I see the game and how I see the players. Some of these tiers are left to right, some are not. I'll call it out when each of those things, applies. And also, this is not just raw statistics, although that's certainly going to be a part of this. It's how well are they playing the position of quarterback, which the position of quarterback is pass the ball to your teammates, keep the offense on time, on schedule, and score points. Like that is the role of a quarterback. The more efficient, effective, productive, and impactful the player is, the higher up on this list they are going to rank. Some players that you will see are going to be having very good statistical seasons, but I have some reasons why I don't have them as high as you might. We'll see who those are in a few minutes. Let's get started with the dumpster water tier. These are among starting quarterbacks in the league, the absolute bottom of the barrel. Oh my God, are they awful? These are players who either make hilariously terrible plays consistently or consistently don't make any plays at all. So Will Levis is there. Daniel Jones is there. And Mr. Touchy himself, Deshaun Watson, who was easily the worst quarterback in the league this year. And that in a league where Daniel Jones started 10 games, to not have Daniel Jones be the worst quarterback in the league is kind of terrible. Without the kind of, it's highly terrible. So Watson is one of those rare moments where I am absolutely rooting for a player to get injured, and I'm glad that he got injured. And they won't admit it, but I bet even a few of his teammates are. If for no other reason than even Jameis Winston has played better than him, although Jameis has only played like 2 games, 3 games, so he's not going to be on the list because he's the backup, and I'm not really putting backups on here. So, next tier. So these are the guys who are below mediocrity. Mediocrity would be an upgrade. Again, not really left to right, just like the first group. This is just more of a bucket. From week to week, these quarterbacks will range from the best in the group to the worst in the group. A couple of these guys have oscillated above or below. And there are a couple of rookies in here. And rookies are in here simply because if you're a rookie quarterback but you're not starting, for whatever reason, mediocrity would be an improvement because that would mean you're on the field. But they're not dumpster water because they're not objectively hurting and harming their team by their sheer existence. And shockingly, yes, I do have O'Connell in this group and not in the dumpster water group because while the Raiders are bad, he at least kind of sort of plays the position the right way, and he at least kind of sort of gets the ball to his teammates, and they have no weapons other than Bowers. And he is not consistently making horrifically awful throws. But if this was left or right, he would be the last guy in this group. Like he's right on the edge of the dumpster water tier. But I'm going to put him up here because he just is slightly less painful to watch. Aaron Rodgers is in this tier. Aaron Rodgers has moments where he belongs in the tier above, but for the majority of this season, and really the majority of the last season he played in Green Bay, last year doesn't count, he got hurt in the first game. He's been awful more than he's been good. Could make a whole video about all the reasons why I think that's the case. Surprisingly, his drug addiction, not one of the reasons. Trevor Lawrence, one of the most overhyped prospects in the last 20 years, I think. Sure, he beat Alabama with a just crazy loaded roster. He's a very good athlete. His chin could cut glass, I guess, or things. Like I guess that was a thing that made him a good quarterback to draft. Like he doesn't have great feet. He doesn't have great accuracy. He has an amazing arm. He's a very good athlete, but he doesn't process super fast. He's inconsistent. He's all boom or bust. Like their big plays are nothing. Like he's okay, but like most of the time he's not even okay. He's just kind of, and that's why he's in the tier. Anthony Richardson, kind of the same thing, like absurd measurables. I think overdrafted, but we'll see. Like 3-year rule. But as of right now, as a second-year player, wildly inconsistent. Does have a good team. Does have a good coach. Outside shot, he becomes something. But as of right now, if he was a mediocre quarterback, that would be an upgrade. McCarthy and Penix are rookies. McCarthy got hurt. Penix is behind an established starter, who they signed right before they drafted him. So both of those guys are in this tier pretty much just as a default. Justin Fields started the year as a starter, which is why he's on the list. And he couldn't beat out a guy who was one of the 4 worst quarterbacks in the league, basically the last couple of years. Like, if you really look at what Sean Payton did to stop Russ from being awful, which he was god awful the year before, it was a lot of coaching around him, and that's what Pittsburgh is doing. Like, Russ is playing better than Fields, but that's just because Fields isn't a good quarterback. He seems like a good dude. He's an amazing athlete, but he's not a good quarterback. We established earlier what that means. Like, he doesn't run the offense well. He doesn't throw the ball well. He's not making enough plays or scoring enough touchdowns for them to go, well, this thing over here compensates for this thing over here, so we're still going to play him. Bryce Young actually, until the last few weeks, was in the dumpster water tier. He might not be dumpster water. I still don't think he's very good. Carolina's a really bad situation, but yeah, that's not looking great as far as that draft decision. And Joe Flacco, look, Joe Flacco's on here because they've started him over Richardson because Richardson got benched. It's a bit of a weird situation like there. There's only 2 of those on here. Pittsburgh and Indianapolis are the only 2 that have 2 quarterbacks. This is the reason why. Flacco's old, and he's Joe Flacco. Like, he'll have some games where he'll make some plays and he'll do some things, but like, he's still Joe Flacco. Okay, next tier. This is our group of meh, but flashes of competence. So this sounds more like an insult than it is. So I very much believe if when you're putting people in tiers, you should be doing absolute scoring. So you should be looking at context, not just production. But you should also be grading all of the players, not on a curve against expectation for where they were drafted or other factors. They should be graded on a curve of, are you really, really good at the quarterback position? Are you pretty good at the quarterback position? Are you kind of good at the quarterback position? Or are you just kind of meh? Like, they're not bad, but they're not good. This one is left to right. So, of this group, Dak Prescott is the best quarterback in the group. It's by a pretty good margin, too. The reason Dak is in this group and not in one of the 2 groups above it, which is probably where I think most people would have him, is the wild oscillation of performance for him against good teams and bad teams. And because you have that inconsistency, because you had the home road splits last year, that's the reason why Dak isn't higher. Dak has the production of an elite quarterback. Dak has moments where he looks like an elite quarterback. Dak's not an elite quarterback. That inconsistency, the way he just gets swallowed by defenses fairly regularly, at least regularly enough where it's noticeable and it's a problem. But also, to me, um, while Dak again makes some great throws and makes some great plays, there's not enough time where you look at games against you know reasonable competition, like devastating bad teams, and we'll get into another guy who does that here in a second. Does not make you good; it makes you acceptable, makes you kind of okay. Um, Tua, the injuries is like it's legitimately a concern. I don't know how you can rank a guy who like the next time he steps on a field he may die. I really feel bad for him. I wish his family had stopped him from coming back, but also like Tua is good enough to get the ball into the hands of his playmakers. He's good. He plays his ass off. Like you can't question his effort, but he's another guy. Like he's a lesser version of Dak. He's inconsistent. He gets rattled. When he gets rattled, or he's not playing with the lead, or he doesn't get to run the track meet football, he looks real fuzzy in the light. And when things snowball the other direction, they snowball really hard. Like he can be good sometimes, but when he's bad, he's really bad. Speaking of, can be good sometimes, but when he's bad, he's really bad. Meet Derek Carr. Derek Carr is almost perfectly in the middle on this whole list, and it's kind of where he belongs. And I've heard people go, well, he's the 20th best quarterback in the league. So here's the problem with that. If there's 20 quarterbacks in the league that are good, that's a compliment. If there's only 7 that are good, and then there's like 6 more that are kind of good, and everybody else is some flavor of butt, he's still butt. And Derek Carr is a big bucket of butt. The one caveat to this is Derek Carr is probably a top 5 quarterback in the league on play action deep shots. Like he throws a beautiful deep ball. Play action helps simplify the read because he's a bit of a dummy. Always been a bit of a dummy. Like he's a guy who goes, oh wow, that guy left his assignment, talking about a free safety leaving their coverage. Like this is not a very cerebral quarterback. He's also wildly inconsistent. Um, the delta, the difference in performance. Like if Dak is really, really, really good when he's great. Derek is never Dak levels of good, especially on things like you can go like, oh, that was all Derek Carr. Derek threw a perfect pass there, read a progression, did a shoulder shrug, pump fake, dropped a dime. Like you'll find those plays occasionally, but that's really not who and what he is. But when he's bad, he is god awful bad. He is how the heck did you throw that pick six bad? Or wow, you just got your teammate murdered because you have bad feet and bad mechanics and you threw a panic throw and your teammate tried to save it and they got annihilated, which happens way too consistently with him for it just to be a few fluke plays. But he is still an 11-year veteran, and as of right now, he's ahead of the 3 rookies. So of the 3 rookies, right now, I think Drake May has looked the best. And this does factor in a little bit of context. Again, these are not just stats. I think Drake May has looked the best. Bo Nix has the best record. And the last few weeks probably has the best stats too, really. Bo Nix also has Sean Payton. And if you're coachable, you look at Sean Payton's history, and as you get later in the season, you get better and better and better. If you're executing Sean's offense, and once he starts moving position groups and layering routes and setting traps for defensive coordinators, if you're executing and you're accurate, Sean's going to make you look good. Bo's doing that. Bo's got to do more to show it's not just Sean. Williams, of the first-round rookies this year, has been the worst. McCarthy and Penix get a pass because they're not playing. Williams has been way up and down. Now, his talent is out of this world. He's the most talented guy in this class. I don't think he was overdrafted, but he hasn't been great. He's also got a bad coach. There's some other issues, like there's context, but we're so far not been good and not doing some of the little things for quarterback well. Russell Wilson just barely is in this tier instead of the one below it. Not a ton to say about Russ. Like he had one pretty good game, but for the most part, Pittsburgh is winning because they have a great defense and they kick a lot of field goals. Russell Wilson is not scoring a ton of it's really throw deep pass jump balls to Pickens, and if Pickens makes a play, they have production, and if he doesn't, they don't. The difference is that Fields wasn't even making those plays, and Russ is, and that's why Russ is above him, but he's still meh. But those deep bombs are occasionally big plays, and they'll have a good day every now and then. But this is just not a guy who's going to consistently run and execute your offense and reliably score points, which again, it's established at the beginning is kind of our criteria here. So now this middle tier that separates the below average quarterbacks from meh to dumpster water, and the above average quarterbacks, the really good guys to the great guys to the best quarterbacks in the league. So I only have two guys in this tier. One is Sam Darnold. And now this is a 2024 list. If this was a 2023 list, Sam Darnold would be probably in the dumpster water bucket. Or actually, he wouldn't be in the bucket because he was a freaking backup quarterback. But you have to rate guys based on their play. He's playing this year. He's a starter. He's playing very well. Now, sure, he's got Justin Jefferson. Minnesota has weapons. He's got a really good coach. He's also executing the offense, and he's executing the offense at a high level. He's not just throwing bubble screens to Tyreek and watching him go 80 yards and going, I get 80 passing yards. I'm doing great. My fantasy team's going to the moon. He's actually playing the position of quarterback. He's making plays with his legs. He's scrambling. He's throwing accurate balls. He's on time, on target. He's made some plays in some close games. He's genuinely playing the position well. He's not playing it great, but he's playing it well and reliably. And that's the same thing I'm going to say about Kirk Cousins. So Kirk Cousins, when Kirk is on, he throws just some absolute dimes, just some incredibly impressive passes. And for large stretches of this year, Kirk's been really, really good. And then for large stretches, he's Kirk Cousins. And he comes with the limitations that Kirk Cousins comes with. Now, some people feel like Kirk is elite because the best version of Kirk Cousins is at least in the next tier, if not the tier above it. The best version of Kirk Cousins isn't there every game, which is why he's not in those tiers. Because the best players are consistently performing up to that level unless there are other circumstances they have no control over and no ability to counteract acting upon them. Like when Drew Brees was pretty clearly the best quarterback in the league at playing the quarterback position. And by the way, this is a time where Tom Brady was still in his prime, and Drew Brees, in my opinion, was the better quarterback. But Tom Brady had the better team. And so Drew wasn't winning a ton of games because you had literally a couple of the worst defenses in NFL history. That's not hyperbolic, literally. Yeah, okay, that's context. We can have that conversation. Kirk's not at that level. Kirk's not producing at that level. Kirk's not elevating the guys in Atlanta at that level, but he's perfectly fine. And don't misunderstand this rating. I don't mean oh, he's fine. What do you want for dinner? McDonald's, fine. It's not that kind of fine. I mean, he's fine. You're perfectly comfortable with him as your starter. If Kirk Cousins was 28 and was playing at this level, and you were a GM running a team, you would go, this could be our starting quarterback for the next 5-6 years. We're perfectly fine with that. He is reliably average at worst and sometimes better than that. That's a good quarterback. So that's what it means in this context. Now we actually have our largest group. So in some ways, I'm higher on some guys and lower on some guys than I'm sure some other people are, which is why the fine average tier has less players for me than it might for some other people. And again, this is left to right. Jared Goff is the same quarterback who, due to the NFL deciding that their rules do not actually matter, got to play in a Super Bowl and was so unqualified to be the starting quarterback of a team in that Super Bowl that the opposing coach's game plan was quite literally make him actually play quarterback so his coach can't give him the answers to the test and he'll score a grand total of 3 points. So that guy is knocking on the door of elite. Ben Johnson, his offensive coordinator, deserves a ton of credit. Dan Campbell, his head coach, deserves a ton of credit. Their GM, whose name escapes me, deserves a ton of credit for surrounding them with a ton of weapons, but also Jared Goff deserves a ton of credit. If you have top level production, if you are scoring a ton of points, and you are reliably and consistently executing the offense while doing those things, you're going to rank pretty high. When you're doing that while you're setting putting some absurd numbers as far as accuracy, you're not turning it over a ton. One game aside where he just decided it was Thanksgiving early and he was handing out balls like they were turkeys. But across the season as a whole, Jared Goff is knocking on the door of elite. But until and unless Jared Goff has a playoff run where Jared Goff looks like an elite quarterback under pressure in the biggest moments, I don't know, doesn't collapse in the second half of an NFC Championship game, like until he gets past that threshold, he would need a couple more years of this level of play to move into the next tier, because those next two tiers are reserved for the guys we know beyond a shadow of a doubt are the best of the best of the best. These are guys you build a championship team around. The next guy on the list right now is Love. Jordan Love. He turns the ball over too often, but he makes some ridiculous throws. He's executing the position at a high level. God damn it, I hate how good Green Bay is at not just drafting quarterbacks, but drafting in general. They build good rosters. And actually, it's the best kept secret because half the teams can't do it. The best kept secret in the NFL is if you build a good roster, it's way easier to develop a talented quarterback. A lot of talented quarterbacks ended up becoming busts because the talent around them was bad, and then they built bad habits, and then they constantly tried to be Superman to make up for the bad team that was around them or the bad coaching, which built more bad habits, and then before you know it, they are a turnover machine and a bust, and they can't play because breaking bad habits is really, really hard to do. Speaking of breaking bad habits and elevating, next guy on the list is Geno Smith. Remember, this is left to right. Geno is criminally underrated. He's a really, really, really high level quarterback. He's accurate. He makes a ton of plays in the pocket, out of the pocket, throws at all three levels, on time, on target, doesn't turn the ball over a ton, doesn't play on a great team. But like if you're just talking, I'll put it like this. There are some more talented teams around the league where if you took the version of Geno Smith that has been in Seattle the last couple of years and you put him on those teams are strongly in the playoffs. You swap Geno Smith and Derek Carr, the Seahawks have one, maybe two wins this year, if that, and the Saints probably have 5 or 6. Because contrary to popular belief, before he got hurt and they lost a couple of games against literally two of the best defenses in the league, Derek Carr wasn't playing well. Derek Carr also lost against the Panthers. Like, I'm shitting on Derek Carr because I don't like him. But, the flip side of that is, again, I'm serious. Geno Smith is really, really good. Throws all over the place, 3-level throws, high-level reads, manipulating safeties and linebackers with his eyes, with his cadence. Really, really good feet. You start going through the list of all the things that you want a high-level quarterback to do. Geno Smith's doing all of them right now. And that's actually the reason why I have him a little bit over CJ Stroud. So CJ Stroud's having more of a down year than he had as a rookie. Some of that is hitting the rookie wall a little bit. A lot of that is Nico Collins being out, his O-line trying to get him murdered. We talked about earlier, context does matter. Those extenuating circumstances, he's making plays and helping his team win and not making his team lose despite constantly being under pressure and being in those situations and not just making plays, with his feet, like making great throws, even if guys are dropping it, like he's doing some of those things consistently enough where you can look at it and go, he's doing his part. The team is having problems. Where some other players, you go, oh, well, they're just under pressure a lot. Okay. That happens to a lot of quarterbacks around the league. The really good ones still make plays under pressure. The great ones, they do that consistently. You start blitzing, they tear you apart. Like, again, those top two tiers, those are reserved for the special guys. Next guy on the list is Murray. He's been low-key freaking fantastic this year. The Cardinals are pretty much out overperforming. They're right around 500. It's not a great roster. Murray is incredibly accurate this year, especially on the move. Yeah, he's, again, criminally underrated. I don't know why he's not getting it as much. Well, it's because they're not winning as much. They were, 7-2 or 7-3 or something like that. He'd be getting all the hype in the world. Like that's, which is fair. But like, if you're really just looking at quarterback play, he's up there this year. Stafford's the same thing. Stafford makes some absurd throws. McVay has Stafford playing at a really high level, but they've been injured to hell all year long. His receivers have been in and out, and no matter how good of a throws you make, if you have no one to throw to, it's relatively hard to make plays consistently. But also, he has the pedigree. So Stafford is a guy I could easily put in the he's fine average or even the meh but flashes of competence tiers based on this year's statistical performance alone. If you actually watch him play and you see the plays he's making and you see the throws he's doing and you see it in the context of what's happening, he's not in those tiers. And if you look at his play the last several years, he's not in those tiers. So like pedigree does matter. I have Stafford above Baker Mayfield, but that's actually pretty close. Baker's been playing phenomenal this year. Lost his number one receiver, lost his number two receiver, still putting up points, putting up yards, stiff arming one of the best defensive players in the year while making a play. Like Baker's balling. Brock Purdy's answered a ton of questions this year. Not as incredibly efficient as he was last year, but again, and I'm saying again, not that I've said it a ton in this video, but a lot of people have pointed this out. Brock Purdy has an incredibly loaded roster around him. So, of course, he was going to put up insane numbers last year, especially with Christian McCaffrey, who, to me, if it wasn't Lamar, Christian McCaffrey was the MVP. Purdy's been really good this year. He's still producing at a high level, even with guys in and out of the roster. He's still making throws at all three levels. He's making high-level reads. He's manipulating defenses. He's using his legs. He is executing the offense at a high level, and he's doing the thing that people question if he could do, which is he's making plays. Not just executing perfectly crafted things that Shanahan drew up, but actually making plays and making things happen, making, second action plays. That's why he's up where he is. Herbert, do it in the playoffs. Like, Herbert should be, if we're just talking talent and what the best version of you looks like, Justin Herbert should be the guy in front of Jared Goff. Herbert has every tool. He can make every throw. He makes some absurd throws, some great plays, but he's been a guy where he hasn't necessarily ever really been the close games or come back from behind guy. And, the Chargers have a lot of just stupid wins stupid losses. That's it. Like, he should be way higher on this than he is. Show that you should be there and you'll be there. Hurts, he's not a great quarterback, but he's a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback at times. Um, Occasionally makes some insane plays. Looks like here's the reason why he's where he is on the list. They still had a good team and a good roster and good weapons. He loses his number one wide receiver. He looks a little funny in the light. He gets him back. He looks really good again. That kind of tells you, just like when Kirk Cousins was putting up bonkers numbers in Minnesota, well, yeah, he had Justin Jefferson. He's good. He's very good. He's perfectly fine as a quarterback. But his production is reaching that next level because the guy he's throwing to is in the position for his position group is in the position that you are misattributing or attributing whatever to the quarterback. And then the last guy in the group is Jaden Daniels. So Jaden Daniels is by far and away the best rookie this year by performance, by play, not just by stats and wins. I'm not a big quarterback wins guy. I'm a big quarterback in context guy. But he's doing things that lead to wins, playing the position at a very high level, was having some absurd accuracy numbers through a big chunk of the year, like playing really, really well. But he is the very last guy in this group. And the reason he's not on the he's fine average is because he's, A, a rookie, but B, like he's demonstrated the dynamic playmaking that moves you out of that group. And he looks really, 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 really good. But if you wanted to, just because he's a rookie, move him somewhere else, that would be fine. Now we get to the elite guys. This part will be very quick. We're almost done with the video. For anybody who's made it through this far, I hope you've enjoyed it. And again, put any thoughts you have in the comments section. I promise I'm not going to take it personal. If you call me a complete idiot and the whole list is wrong and blah blah blah, like, okay, cool. It's more interesting if you actually say why you believe that and who you believe belongs where. But like, you can call me an idiot in the comments. I'm totally cool with it. This is left to right. Joe Burrow is the second best quarterback in the league. When I'm not talking about who wins MVPs, I'm talking about the criteria we set at the beginning of the video. Joe Burrow executes the offense. He makes plays. He's the most accurate. He's the most consistent. He's the most reliable. He's the most dynamic. He's gone the furthest in the playoffs because Joe Burrow has made a Super Bowl. There's really nothing Joe Burrow hasn't done. His numbers this year are bonkers. And yes, he's throwing to Chase. But it also go watch the throws he's making to Chase. Like, both of them are benefiting from this relationship, and he's throwing the ball to other people, and he's making some ridiculous plays with his legs, plays with his arm, manipulating defenses. Every aspect of playing the position he does at an elite level, and does it consistently year in, year out. Second guy on the list is Josh Allen, and Josh Allen is really starting to move closer to being in that number 2 spot. Incredibly dynamic with his legs. Very good with his arm. We'll see if it stays, but at least for now has really cut down on his turnovers, and especially the dumb face palm, what the were you thinking, interceptions and fumbles. And look, if he's got that part of his game down, and with the the receivers they have, and he's still winning like this, and he's still playing like this, and he continues to improve and continues to put in the work, he's going to be the second best quarterback in the league very soon. Just because like his toolkit is second to only the very obvious guy in the freaking top column that we all know who's there, who we'll talk about in a second, very briefly, because it doesn't need a lot of conversation. I have Lamar Jackson third in the elite group, and just for anybody who's losing their mind right now, the gap between these 3 players, for me, it really comes down to consistency. And I am factoring in the playoffs here. Burrow is the most likely to win you a playoff game and the least likely to lose you a playoff game. Allen's in the middle, and Lamar is, while he can win you a playoff game, he's the most likely of these 3 guys to be the reason you lose. We have seen Lamar Jackson have some absolutely horrifically bad playoff games where he was terrible, all caps, And he's the biggest reason Baltimore lost that game. Lamar needs to make an AFC championship game again and play well in it. And really, to move further in this tier, Lamar Jackson needs to win a Super Bowl. He's a top 4 quarterback in the league. He's unquestionably elite. He's a multi-time MVP. Like, he's bananas good. Now we're splitting hairs. Now we're really into the nitty-gritty, the smallest details, the tiniest of margins. And when you start looking at that stuff, there's a gap between him and the other two. And of course, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. And again, I said at the beginning, I don't really care about what your numbers are. He was not having great numbers last year, and then he got to the playoffs and he put up very respectable numbers and performed really well and came in all the biggest moments. And they won back-to-back Super Bowls, and they just lost their first game all year. And his numbers aren't great, but his fourth quarter numbers are pretty impressive. And they have guys out. They don't have a ton of weapons, and all that's again, not making excuses. Other guys in the league have had those issues too. Unless he just completely lays an egg in the playoffs, and one of the 3 guys below him not only beat him in the playoffs, beat his team, because you don't play the quarterback directly, you play their defense, and then win the Super Bowl, we can have the conversation of right now, this minute, is the other guy the best quarterback in the league. Until then, it's a stupid conversation, and we're not having it. He's the best quarterback in the league. He's already proven he can do the production. He's already proven he has the absurd numbers. He's already proven he's the toolsiest tool guy that ever tooled. And he's winning. Like, okay, he's not great for your fantasy football team. I don't really care. He's executing the quarterback position still at a very high level within context. And if legacy and history and proven capability counts for other guys on the list, which it did, it sure as hell counts for him too. So that's the list. Again, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for anyone who managed to make it through an entire 37 minutes of me running my mouth and looking at all of the starting quarterbacks around the league. If you had fun, awesome. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell notification. If you didn't have fun, terrorize your friends, send them the video, tell them I'm really smart, make them listen to everything, and then laugh at them as they suffered as you did. I'm okay with either version, but I hope you guys enjoyed it.